everyone, my name's Dina. Today I'm going to show you how to make my keystone earrings. We're going to be using some quad bows, some bicones, and a couple different sizes of Miyuki seed beads. So go down to the list below to see that list of supplies, gather those up, as well as a bead on up board. Meet me back and I'll show you the first step. Alright, now that you have all your stuff all ready to go, I have a dragon thread size 8, and I have the green color today of thread that I'm going to be using. It's already on my needle. I have about 2.5, 3 feet or so. That should be plenty to be able to do one earring, so you'll need at least that for both earrings. So to start off, I have piles of everything. I've got my 8/0s over here off to the side. Then I have my primary 11s, my secondary 11s. I've got my 15s, quad bows, and then my bicones. So the first step that we're going to start off with is we're going to start with our primary 11/0. So just choose whichever one that you want to use. You can always just use one color. You don't have to use two colors of 11/0s. I just thought it looked kind of nice and different, and it'll help kind of teach the different steps and everything. Bring those down to the bottom of the thread, just enough to where you can hold on to it. Actually, no, sorry. We're actually going to tie a knot first. So go ahead and tie yourself a knot. And this first step is going to end up being a raw unit as well as a some herringbone stitches and stuff, which I think is called circular peyote. I believe that's what it is. If it is not, please don't get upset with me because I'm still learning some of the names of the stitches. I just kind of know how to do them. I just don't remember what the names of them are. Alright, so now that we have everything tied in a knot, you just have a little raw unit sitting there. So we're going to make it into a double raw unit, so pick up another of your primary colors. You're coming out of that first bead, we're going to go through the second bead. And do that 3 more times. So coming out of the first, or coming out of that bead, and go through the next one. That first bead might sit a little wonky because that's where your knot is. It's fine, it'll fix here shortly. So do that a 3rd time and a 4th time. And when you come out of this last bead, make sure you're going back through the first bead that we started off with. And then there is, whoops, I'm flipping it around by accident. There is your little double right angle weave. Now we're going to use our secondary color, so that way it's a little bit easier. Because now we're going to start our herringbone stitch. So pick up 2 of your secondary. You're coming out of that that first bead on the last row that we added. We're going to go through the next one that's sticking out on the corner. And then we're going to do that 3 more times. So 2 beads, go through the next one sitting out in the corner. 2 beads, next one. And then 2 beads. And the last one sticking out, and go ahead and go through the first of the 2 yellow seed beads that we just added on this step, or this portion. And then that's what it should look like there. So we're going to do one more round of this, and it's a little bit different, so if those of y'all that know how to do this, then you'll know what I'm talking about. If not, I'm going to try to teach it. So add 2 more of your secondary. You're coming out of this first bead here, you want to go down the second bead. And then when your beads sit, you want them to kind of sit almost like a V in a way. See how it's kind of sort of like a V shape? So that's the herringbone stitch. So that's what you want your beads to look like. Now pick up one of your primary colors. You're coming out of that second bead of that first herringbone stitch. You have a space here, and then you have your first bead of your next herringbone stitch. That's where this bead is going to sit, is on top of that previous same colored bead. So coming out of that first one, go through, or coming out of the second of the first group, go through the first of the second group. I had to think about that. Now we're doing a herringbone stitch again. So pick up 2 beads. We're coming out of the first bead of the herringbone. We're going to go down the second bead of the herringbone. And sometimes you kind of have to play with them a little bit to get them to sit right, but you want them to sit just about like that. If it's not perfect, it's fine. This next step we will get that fixed, and you're not even going to notice if they're kind of a little wonky here and there. So I'm going to go ahead and finish off this step, and then I will show you the next portion, and then we'll take a break and let you catch up. So here's the last two of the herringbone. Now when I'm adding this last bead of this row, this is your space right here, so don't forget that last bead, because you need to be coming out of this herringbone stitch up here. So when you add that last bead, you need to go through the first herringbone, because that's what we're going through, because we're adding that second herringbone. So you go through the first herringbone, but then you want to step up through the second herringbone, so that we are coming out of the row that we're just now completing. That way you're set up for your next stitch. Now, instead of doing a herringbone stitch, we're still going to be sort of kind of doing a herringbone, but we're going to be using our quad bows. So take your quad bow, face it to where you have the bigger side or the outer side up at the top, and you have the smaller side or the inner side down on the bottom. Now you have your four holes. You got 1, 2, 3, and 4. We want to go through one of the two middle holes right there. Doesn't matter which one it is at this particular point in time, because it's going to flip back and forth. So if you have one of those quad bows that has like the etched portion to it, then you may want to make sure that your etched portion is on the front. So if that's the case, then you want to go through the second hole counting from the left side. So if the left side would be this, that would be the first. I'd be going through the second hole right now. So if that's the case, you need to make sure you're going through that one. If it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter. You can do whatever you want. Then we're going to pick up a 15, a primary, 11, an 8, 11, and a 15. So it's kind of an increase and a decrease. So 15, 11, 8, 11, 15. Let this fall down. Whoops. To the working. Now you're coming out of that first hole, or that second hole that's in the quad bow. We want to go through the third hole of the quad bow. And then, if you can, catch on to your second bead of your herringbone stitch. See how I'm coming out of the first one with the thread, and then now I'm going down the second one with the needle right now. And then when you pull that down, you now have your bead sitting on top of that herringbone. So kind of finagle your 8-0 up here at the top if you need to, just kind of make it sit a little bit better. But we're going to go back through all the beads around the edge here in a little while, so don't worry about it. So we're coming out of that second herringbone. Now we need to get back over to here. So we need to add 2 more peyote stitches. So pick up a bead. Coming out of the herringbone, you need to go through the peyote stitch or the primary color 11-0 sitting next to it. So we're going to put an 11-0 in that space. We're going to pick up another 11-0. We're coming out of this bead right here. We need to go through the first one of the next herringbone stitch. Like that. And now you're set up to add your quad bows again. So that's all you do on this step, or this portion of the step. One thing that you have to make sure, double check your holes of your quad bows before you start. One of my alternate colors that I'm wearing, I don't know which one it was, but one of the alternate ones that I'm wearing actually had a missing hole, and I didn't realize it until I had gotten all the way over to this last section to try to add on that extra bead, and there was no hole there for me to do so. So definitely double check your holes of your quad bows before you get too far into the project, so you don't have to take it out and redo it like I did. So I am adding this second part in once I get done with this, and then I will take a break and allow you to catch up, and then I will show you the next part. So we're adding our peyote stitches, and then now I'm going through the herringbone stitch, and now I'm set up to start with my next quad bow. So go ahead and finish up those last two. Don't forget, when you get that fourth quad bow on, don't forget to add your 2 peyote stitches before before you move up to the next spot. So when you're done, I will meet you at that first herringbone stitch right here and show you what you do. So I'm coming out of the first of the herringbone stitches right before the quad bow. So to continue on, we need to go through that hole of that quad bow, so that second hole there. And if you catch on to the 15 and the 11, perfectly fine, that's where we're going to next. So go through your 15, 11, 8, 11, and 15, come back out before you go through the quad bow. Turned on a little bit more light on my bead mat, so hopefully that is a little bit better with the lighting. Still learning how to use my lighting around the house. So your next step is to pick up 2 11s, and I've got my primary color and then my secondary color. So we're coming out of that 15-0 right there at the top. We're not going to use that hole anymore at the moment, that third hole, but we're going to go through the fourth hole of the quad bow. Just like that. And then that puts those 2 beads on the outside. To move to the next stitch, we need to go through the peyote stitch, which in my colors is going to be the brown color. So that first brown color that's sitting almost directly underneath that fourth hole of that quad bow that we're going through at the moment. So go ahead and go through that one. Then we're going to pick up an 8. And then we're coming out of this bead right here. Then we're going to go through that second bead, so that next peyote stitch. So we're coming out of this one, and we're going to go through that next peyote stitch bead, that next brown one, just as if we were to be doing a normal peyote. And that should sit your 8-0 sitting in between the two, just like that. Now to get ready to add more beads at the top, we're going to go through that first hole of the next quad bow in line. It's going to be a little off center from where your 11-0 is at. It's not going to be directly in that direction. It's more kind of over here a little bit more. So it may be a little bit difficult to get it all in one step. So splitting it up like that usually helps a little bit. So on this part, we're going to pick up a secondary 11 of 15, one of our bicones of 15 and 11. So we have an 11, 15 bicone, 15 and 11. So we're coming out of that first hole of the second quad bow. We're going to go back to the fourth hole of the first quad bow to circle this out. And if you get into the 8-0, that's fine. That's the next thing for us to do anyway. So go through the 8-0, and then I went back through the first hole of the next quad bow. So that way we're on the outside again. And then your bead should lay something similar to that. Eventually, once we get everything on, these quad bows are going to be very close to each other like this. Mine's kind of spaced out a little bit, but once we go through around everything around the edge, then it's going to be a little bit more spaced out, or squished in like this. So just make sure that your 8-0 that you just added is always on the top of your earring, because sometimes they want to poke to the back side. So just make sure it's up at the top. Now we're going to add 2 more 11s, and I'm doing the opposite of what I did at the very beginning. So I'm picking up the secondary and then the primary, and then we're going to go through the 5 beads at the top. The 15, 11, 8, 11, 15, and then come out of the 15. You don't want to go back through the quad bow just yet. So now we're going to add our 2 11s again. I'll show you this one more time because I have a feeling this part right down here is a little confusing. So 2 11s coming out the fourth hole of that current quad bow. We're going to go through that brown, or the primary color, which is the peyote stitch that we added. Okay, you can kind of see it right there. Going through that first one. And then in between those 2 browns, we're going to add an 8-0. So we're coming out of that first one, we're going to go through the next one, which is sitting right here. Go through that one, And then, like I said, they're not exactly lined up, so just go through the one bead and then go through the fourth hole of the next quad bow. And now you're set up to add your bicone at the top, which was secondary 11, 15, bicone 15, and an 11. Just like that. Coming out of the fourth hole of the second quad bow, we're going to go through the first hole. I knew I was going to do that. Coming out of the first hole of the second quad bow, we're going through the fourth hole of the first quad bow. And then to get yourself set up for adding the last two beads in this section before starting over again, go through your 8-0 and then back through that first hole of the next quad bow, then pick up the secondary 11, the primary 11, and then now you're set up to go through the 5 beads on the top. So that is this portion of the next step. So go ahead and finish the next 2 sides right here, and then I will meet you back up here at the top. Alright, so now I'm about to add my last 2 beads. I've got the secondary color and the primary color. We're going to go ahead and go through that 15, 11, 8, 11, and 15. Well, if I can get my needle to go through there. Nope, I can't see what I'm doing, so give me a second. So I can get it to go through that 15. It was being a little difficult, but I got it. Okay, so 15, 11, 8, and actually, you want to be coming out of that next 11. You want to skip the 15. When you're adding the bicones around the edge, because you can actually add whatever you want to, on my alternate colorway, I just added seed beads. I don't have bicones around the edge right here. But I did notice that when I made the first earring of this one, that I need to kind of decrease the amount of beads that are on the side somehow. So come out of that first, or that second 11-0 in that first group of 5 that we added in that step. So basically we're going to be skipping the 15 out of that 5. And then we're just going to go straight around the outer edge, but we're going to skip that 115. The other 15 that's connected to the bicone here, continue through that, those 2 that are there. But the 15 that is connected to the group of 5 that we started with at the very beginning, that's the 15 that you want to skip. So then, and of course I'm having problems doing that too. There we go. Okay. So that's all you do, is you skip this 15 right here, and you skip this 15 right here. So just go straight through your 11s. You're going to see a little bit of thread right there, but it's going to be such a small amount, nobody's going to notice. So go ahead and finish that part, and then I will show you how to get to the center part here so we can start adding the rest of our bicones. So when you finish that step, you should be coming out somewhere around in that first little set of 5. I ended up coming out of the 8-0, so that's where I'm sitting at the moment. So to continue on, you need to go through the 11 and the 15 that's on the side here, and continue through that hole of that quad bow, so that third hole, because we want to get to the interior down here so we can add on some more bicones. What I'm going to end up doing is going through both of the herringbone stitches, so both of the yellow 11-0s, and come out. And what I'm getting to is the next bead that we'll go through. So if you notice, there is one brown, or the primary 11-0, just below the yellow 8-0s. That's what you're supposed to be going through. So we're going to, in this step, we're just going through those 11-0s that are underneath the 8-0s in the primary color. So once you're coming out of that, pick up a bicone. I'm continuing in a clockwise fashion at the moment, so the next one I'm going to go to is the 11-0 that's underneath the 8-0 on the right hand side. And then when you pull the bicone in, then that sits the bicone in the center, like that. So pick up another bicone and go through the next one, which for me is going to be on the bottom. And then the third bicone is going to go through the 11-0 on the left, and then your last bicone is going back through the one at the top. And then that puts your bicones in the center. I'll hold it up like that so you can kind of see it a little bit better. So now you can notice that there's some holes in between the two bicones. So we're going to put some 11-0s in between the two bicones. So I'm coming out of a bicone right now. I've got 11-0 in my secondary color. I'm going straight through the next bicone. So that way, when you pull, that should put that 11-0. And I was not coming out of a bicone just then. So we're going to back out and we're going to fix that. I was coming out of the 11-0. I forgot to go through the bicone. So go through the next bicone. Now pick up an 11-0 and then continue on through the next bicone. You're trying to get those bicones to set like that. That's better. With the 11-0s in between. So just pick up an 11-0 and then go through each one of these bicones that we just added. And then I'm going to go through this set one more time. And then I'm going to make sure that I'm coming out of a bicone. Because the bicone will get you through, will get you to where you need to go to the next bead. So I'm coming out of bicone and get you through the next bead. So you remember that 11-0 that we added in between the bicones? We went through that 11-0 that's sitting below the 8-0 sitting right here. We want to go back through that 11-0, but I'm going to go towards the back of the product so I can see what I'm doing a little bit better. Because there's so many beads on top, it's kind of hard to get to the back. And what I'm doing right now is I'm trying to get back to the start thread right here. So if you already see a path and to that thread, then go ahead and follow that path. And for me, I'm coming out of that 11-0 right here, which is the one that's directly below the 8-0. So there's the 11-0 right here. I'm just going to go straight down into the 11-0 that's below it. And then I'm going to continue on through the next 11-0, which is part of the 4 of the original 4 that we added. And then when I go through the second one of the original 4 that we added, then that gets me to the end where I can tie a knot. So I'm just doing right over left, left over right, unless I did it backwards. Sometimes I do left over right, then right over left. I think it still ends up the same, so as long as it's tied in a knot. And then use your thread burner, burn it down close to the product. And then I'll use the thread burner and burn it down even closer here in a minute, because when you turn it to the front, your earring is almost complete. Only other thing that we need to do is pick up your jump ring and 2 of your pliers. So hold your jump ring to where you have it in one of your pliers, get your other one up to it next, twist it open. Don't pull it apart. If you pull it apart, then that's going to ruin the jump ring. So just twist it open. See how mine's open like that. And then I'm going to pick one of my 8-0s that's out on the edge. I'm going to go straight through the 8-0. Sometimes you have to kind of wiggle it depending on what type of coating's on the 8-0. And then I'm going to go ahead and add my ear wire right away. So that way I don't have to worry about opening and closing that one. Then to close the jump ring, you got your pliers on either side again, and then you just twist it back. Now on these, you always want to go slightly past. See how I went slightly past on the jump ring, and then I'm going to go back and forth and kind of wiggle it a little bit. That's just to help make sure that it's actually closed. And then after that, you have a completed earring. Thanks so much for watching my Keystone earring tutorial. I want to give a special shout out to my daughter Michaela for helping me name these earrings today. So don't forget to take pictures and post your pictures of your colorways of this specific tutorial on Facebook, because I love to see all the different colors and everything everybody else picks out. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe so that way you'll get notified whenever whenever Potomac actually comes out with any new videos. So get ready for that next one, because I know it's going to be a good one.